some sense of it all, but I can see it makes no sense at all. Is it cool to go to sleep on the floor? 'Cause I don't think that I can take anymore. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is, what day is it? Tuesday, December 30th, 2025. And of course, the day before New Year's Eve, 2025 is coming to an end. And January 1st, what does that bring? Silver stopping being exported from China. That's what that brings. So that's going to be very interesting, very, very interesting indeed. We will see if that has an impact on what's going on with the price of silver. And we're going to start there because what's going on with silver is obviously being manipulated, but there's other things going on with that. And we're just going to look at that to start today. The Iran war and protests in Iran, we're going to talk about that. Netanyahu is at the White House again. He's there every other week to have Trump pull his chair out and do whatever he's told, I guess. So this week, Trump was reaffirming that yes, we're going to do strikes on Iran if they don't stop with their nonsense of ballistic missiles or something like that. Okay, sure, sounds good. America first? Are you sure? Are you sure, sir? Widespread fraud being uncovered in daycares and healthcare and government funding. Canada does daycares. $10 a day daycare programs and things like that. I have to wonder if there's a lot of fraud in that program. And the healthcare stuff, I know there's a lot of fraud in that, in all of that, in that whole apparatus, right? Same with education, massive fraud, just huge amounts of fraud. And so that's not surprising, but very, very concerning. Canada will keep funding Ukraine even after the war is over. So lucky us, we get to spend money to fund Ukraine and unendingly fund Ukraine. Why? Got me? I have no idea. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. Silver. Shanka says, I just watched $4 billion in silver longs get vaporized in 70 minutes, 83 to 75.15, fastest wipeout I've ever seen. CNBC is already running the bubble burst narrative. Bloomberg too. They want you scared. They want you out. But nobody's talking about what happened in Shanghai during the exact same window. While American traders panic dumped at 75, I don't believe that they did. If silver's dipping, people are buying the dip, man. If they can get their hands on real silver. Anyway, back to this. Chinese buyers were paying 90, so Americans were dumping at 75. Chinese were paying 90. 90 for the same metal. The premium didn't shrink during the crash. It widened. Let that sink in. This wasn't a top. It was a heist. I've been in this game long enough to know what a liquidity vacuum looks like. There were zero bids between $83 and $76. The algos pulled everything. Price didn't fall. It teleported. And the second it hit $75, physical demand stepped in like it was Christmas morning. Hence, the part that should terrify you, China locks silver exports in 72 hours, January 1st. Export licenses only. They control 70% of global supply. COMEX is down 70% on inventory. London's vaults are bleeding. And Elon Musk just tweeted, "This is not good," about the shortage. The gold-silver ratio is 60 to 1. Historical average is 30. That's $150 silver just to normalize. So buy the dip, buy the dip. I don't have enough silver for this, not even close. Everyone's calling this 1980. It's not. The Hunts were speculators playing paper games. This is industrial demand crashing into empty vaults. Solar panels don't negotiate. AI chips don't wait. Retail just handed the Silver Sovereign Wealth Fund over at a 15% discount. And most of you have no idea what's about to happen. What's about to happen? What's about to happen? I am included in the what's about to happen. Most of us have no idea about what's about to happen. I have a feeling it could have an impact on computers and other devices like phones. What was once $1,000, $5,000, maybe different, right? Who knows? Who knows at this point in time? And I'm just wildly speculating. I'm just saying if silver's gone up by this much, that's going to have a price. That's going to have a price impact on the consumer goods that need silver, I think. Right? Not so good, if you ask me. Bar chart says just in, copper soars to a new all-time high. We had an internet outage recently and we got a text from Rogers, and Rogers said, if it's just your regular run-of-the-mill outage, it'll be fixed in the next 2 to 3 hours. And it was. But if lines are missing because people are stealing copper, was the unsaid subtext, but that's what's been going on. People have been digging up or stealing lines in order to harvest the copper from it because it's so expensive. So that's interesting, though. The silver, the platinum, palladium, all of these metals, precious metals, are skyrocketing in value, right? And so that's very, very interesting to me. All new highs, $13,000 a ton after a powerful December, right? So everything seems to be, well, things like precious metals seem to be very, very valuable these days in the Trump era of cleaning up. What they were doing with silver was they were using the paper market, and they're using the paper market now to manipulate the price, but they were using the paper market to keep the price low and then robbing the stores in order to keep the price low and make sure that the industry had access to the silver it needed to keep the electronic devices cheap. That doesn't make much sense, does it? So why would they artificially keep the price of silver low? It's a part of a control thing, right? It makes sure their fiat money is more powerful than quote unquote real money, gold and silver. And if gold and silver were allowed to be actually pegged at market rate, it might be $150 silver just to be normalized with the ratio of the gold to silver. Usually this is, if gold is X, then silver is Y at this ratio. That's usually what happens, but they've been manipulating the price of silver. And so what they got caught doing was using a lot of paper silver. Same thing they were doing with the GameStop stocks. It's supposed to be 100 stocks, let's just say, is the number of stocks that you have. But they would sell 200 stocks, but not tell anybody that they were overselling the stocks. Same with silver. You have X amount of ounces or troy ounces of silver, but instead of being actually limited by that amount, they would sell more than that in paper silver. And so people think that they own silver, but they don't actually own the silver because it doesn't exist, because it's fake. But they're paying the same rate as if it's real. And that's fraud. It's fraud, right? But the financial market was saying, no, it's not fraud. That's just how the financial market works. And now they got caught, and now the margin's being called. You have to pay for this. You have to cover this. And they can't, to the tune of billions. They can't. They don't have the liquidity. There's no money there. And so twice in the last 5 days since Christmas, the banks have had to inject billions of dollars into, the government's had to inject billions of dollars into the banks in order to make liquid money available. That's not usual, right? Merry Christmas, you banks, you. So a silent bailout, maybe. So pretty crazy stuff going on there. Something to keep watching, and I'm going to. Let's move into our grab bag of governance. National Post is reporting John Ivison, who apparently has no idea what he's talking about, says Canada and the EU can win an arms race with Russia even without Trump. No, we can't. So anybody who tells you that we could win an arms race against Russia, nope. We can't even build a pipeline without Donald Trump in the United States. LOL. No, I don't think so. So irresponsible headline, irresponsible journalism. I would be ashamed to have my name tied to that headline. Holy smokeronies, John. Give me a break, buddy. Michelle says, this person nails it, Canada in a nutshell. And they say Canada doesn't have a healthcare system. It has a death management system. Yep. Canada doesn't have an education system. It has an indoctrination system. Canada doesn't have free press. It has propaganda outlets. I try to be it's a blog, I guess. Canada doesn't have a government. It has an organized crime syndicate. Yes, but the organized crime syndicate is global in nature. So there's that. We're just an outpost. I don't think that we're a big hitter other than Mark Carney, who got parachuted in because Justin Trudeau failed and he wanted to go date Katy Perry. The real Mr. Bench says, turns out the secret meeting and flight for Mark Carney is in Nanaimo, BC. Why are the Liberals keeping this trip so private? So real Mr. Bench again says, on December 27th, Mark Carney flew to Halifax on a quickly put together itinerary to give Zelensky $2.5 billion. Today, December 29th, yesterday, Carney is flying to possibly Vancouver, BC. It turned out to be Nanaimo. No information from the Prime Minister's office. His flight data says he's going to Camp Springs in Washington, like it did on Saturday. Why the secrets? So why is Mark Carney having secret meetings in Nanaimo, BC? Pipeline related, right? Are we going to have a pipeline forced because carbon taxes have been promised if there's a pipeline? Which, yikes. Again, yikes. Ivano says, I think that's how you say his name, says Mark Carney is set to hike up payroll taxes in 2026. Canada needs some serious tax cuts in 2026. The federal government is cutting income taxes, but is also hiking payroll taxes, according to Franco Tetrazzino. He's the tax the Tax Watcher people. I can't remember their branding, but he's been around, and he talks about all the crazy stuff that's going on in Canada a lot. Shazzy says a Power of Sale sat 1,041 days on the market after being bought at the 21 peak. Relisted again and again. Price cuts didn't save it. Now the bank owns it, yet people still claim the bottom is in. Another Oakville Power of Sale, a brand new townhouse never lived in, sold the same day in 2022, now down 34% to $460,000. This isn't a fringe event anymore. Power of Sale is spreading across Toronto from stalled developers, over-leveraged luxury homeowners, and investors hit by falling rents and higher rates. Even the bridle path isn't immune. Meanwhile, $55 an hour used to mean stability in Canada. Now it means survival as housing and groceries consume everything. Still think that the bottom is in. No, but it's interesting what's going on with housing, because the factors that put pressure on housing are very, very different than they were in, say, 2015. But the pricing, I think there's still upward pressure, and the government wants to keep the price high, but the people don't have the money, right? Like, the government wants to keep the price high because the boomers don't want to lose value in their retirement property, and the government wants to keep the boomers happy if they can. But people don't have the cash, and there's stress tests and all sorts of other things, so people simply can't get into the housing that they could before. And I think there's a ban on foreign ownership that is being removed soon. That ban on foreign ownership will help keep the prices up because foreigners can afford it. Rich foreigners can afford it. But Canadian citizens who are working in Canada and trying to make a living here, they can't, right? And so that's not good, right? But we're sitting in a situation, again, that's vastly different. There's different pressure points now than in 2015. But things are much worse than they were in 2015, much worse, right? And things are a lot more expensive, and not at the usual rate, but at a much faster rate than normal. And now the air's falling out because people can't afford it. And so I don't know what we're going to see. I think they want to keep the air in it. I think they want to keep it inflated. Wall Street Apes is highlighting this video. This is going back to COVID era, and this is government spending, government waste. Some would argue government fraud. Here we go.
I have insider information. The entire pandemic response was managed by McKinsey. They had a crisis team that worked full-time every day for the Quebec government. So from the curfew to the pass to the layoffs if you're not vaccinated to shutting down the economy were all recommendations by the crisis team of McKinsey. Guess how much we were being charged per day for these 6 guys? That crisis team of McKinsey costed $35,000 per day, and they worked for 2 years on this. I have
2 years of $35,000 per day to run that team, to have recommendations like, yeah, we should have a curfew for everybody. Sounds good. Let's do that. Crazy. We paid for that. And other things that we're paying for, and I lament often, municipal politics is just the bane of my existence. Not really. It's one of those things where they have a lot of power and they do nothing at all to help with all of the crazy stuff going on. They ignore things like boys being encouraged to use the girls' washrooms in schools in the city. Whereas I think if I was the mayor, I'd be writing letters to the principal and the director of education, and I'd be passing ordinances and things like that. Like, no, we're not having this in this city. That's not happening, period. And so I have a hard time when people sit back and support this because the ideology is cracked, and it's obvious that it's cracked. Alberta Radio says Premier Danielle Smith needs to investigate why Edmonton isn't prioritizing services to justify the increases of property taxes. Citizens and property owners are not getting the services they pay for. So a few years ago, 22, 21 or 22, excuse me, the city Guelph put out, and then so did other cities, Kitchener as well, I think, Waterloo, Kitchener, a new initiative that was going to prioritize plowing sidewalks over secondary routes. So like main routes were going to get plowed. So, you know, your city streets, your main city streets were going to get plowed, but your secondary city streets were going to wait, and the sidewalks were going to get plowed. And I was like, they use different things. Like, it's not like you're using the same equipment. They use different things. What are you talking about? But fundamentally, It's a virtue signal. They're talking about plowing bike lanes. The mayor left no plowing for bike lanes out of the budget. He left that out of the budget. And then the budget had to get reopened and then re-voted on. And the mayor apologized. It's something like $600,000 to plow bike lanes. Oh, don't ride your bike in the wintertime, guys. That's crazy town. Like, did you see it outside? It's winter. It's winter. Like, come on. So we're not getting, the potholes in Guelph are just unbelievable. The parks are really nice. The parks are super nice in Guelph. I have no complaints about that, but there's waste all over the place, libraries and things like that. And instead of doing what they should be doing, they put up speed cameras and bike lanes and protected bike lanes. If you go to Willow Road in Guelph, they put up curb things to separate the bike lanes and then flags up from the curb things. So what used to be a 4-lane road is now a 3-lane road, 1 lane north, 1 lane south, suicide lane in the middle. And then bike lanes on either side with these curbs. And it's so bad that fire trucks and other emergency vehicles have to go around. They go out to the Hanlon instead of going down the Silver Creek Parkway, because they destroyed it with their idiocy. They destroyed it. That's what they waste our tax dollars on. And people don't seem to care. People walk around and say, oh, well, it's not that bad. It's bad. It's stupid. It's bad. At Stone Road, they put all sorts of speed humps, and they reduce the width of the road to like inches bigger than a vehicle. So you have to slow down unless you want to hit their baton things that are in the ground. And people hit them all the time. And so like, they do these things because they're trying to, quote, solve problems, but the problems they want to solve don't exist. And the real problems, like potholes, effing well do. So this happens in Calgary, it happens in Guelph, it happens in Mississauga, it happens everywhere. These ideologues get in and they do bullshit traffic calming instead of fixing the damn potholes, which is what they're supposed to do. So it pisses me off. And again, nobody seems to care. There are other bigger fish to fry, right? Like, yes, it pisses me off, but there are other things that are more important. But still, nobody seems to care. I can't believe that nobody cares. Nobody cares. Let's talk about fraud in Minnesota. My gosh, this is going to be, I'm going to have to cut us off for the stream halfway through. I've been not very disciplined with how I want to do 20 minutes for free. And then the rest is, you have to go to Canada Poly. But my discipline is just, it's Christmas, anyway. The Reclaimer says, I don't think we have any idea how intertwined Brookfield is with the government of Canada. In one accounting book alone, they received over $500 million from the Liberal government. I have more accounting books to go through. So, and he goes through more, and the story is, I took 2015 to 2025 financial data, made individual files for all payments by year, purpose, ministry, recipient, then merged them into one file and merged them into single sums. From 2015 to 2025, Brookfield companies received $900 million from the Canadian taxpayer. Whew, $900 million. Like, that's almost $1 billion. That's a lot of money, right? It's not First Nations money, but it's a lot of money, right? How much fraud is there? And so that's a huge amount of money from the government. Why is Brookfield being enriched so much? How can I have a company that is bestowed a Liberal government contract, right? Like, jeepers creepers. These things are valuable, it seems. Melissa says, a quick search shows that Canada sent millions of dollars to other countries for their healthcare systems in 2025. Meanwhile, in Canada, we have people dying waiting for care and millions of Canadians without a family doctor. Taxpayers are getting screwed in Canada. So you've got all of this money, $2 million, $2 million. This is Gaza, Syria, Gaza, another 2 million, East Africa, 14 million, health sector in South Sudan, 75 million, 18 million for Bangladesh, Nepal, and Vietnam, 30 million for comprehensive health options through innovative community engagement. Oxfam Canada is giving that to somebody. Comprehensive health options through innovative community engagements. No idea where that is. No idea. This one's Pakistan. So Indonesia, empowering women. So 7 million for empowering women, 20 million for Pakistan, 14 million for Indonesia. Is that fraud? Seems like fraud to me, but I can't go knock on doors and ask questions because it's government. Somebody was much quicker to the point, and they basically said Canada cut out the middleman. I was trying to explain it, but Canada cut out the middleman and directly pays off the recipients instead of allowing an NGO to be the middleman. Although there are a lot of NGO middlemen as well, but the NGOs are giving kickbacks to family members and things like that. CTV or City News is reporting 28 driving schools in Toronto have had their licenses revoked by the Ontario government. Fraud. That's fraud. And Canadians are worse off for it, less safe, and so on. And that's very, very concerning. Ryan says one of the biggest fraud scandals in the United States history is happening, and the entire Canadian mainstream media machine is hiding it. Why are they determining what Canadians should or shouldn't know about? Now, the thing is, it's not just Canadian mainstream media that's hiding all of this. It's all the mainstream media, even in the United States. Washington Post, New York Times, New York Post seems to be running these things, but even then, it's one of those things where they're certainly not reporting the whole story, and they're casting shade at anybody who is aware of what's going on. Just like during Pizzagate, just like during the first Trump administration, if you were saying like, hey, there's a lot of like crazy stuff going on here, people would say, oh, you're part of a cult or this or that. But Ilhan Omar really did marry her brother, and they really did commit a whole bunch of crimes. And now they're scrubbing the internet and scrubbing their companies and running away, right? So like pretty crazy stuff going on, man. Some people are saying a lot of Somalians are self-deporting from Minnesota. I don't know, maybe. Eric says, WTF, this is an Ohio representative in Columbus, Ohio, Ishmaeli Mohammed. And he says, our main objective is to discuss things that concern Somalia. It's our country, our people. Our aim is a united front to lobby for Somalia. So weird, right? Like, and here he is talking in Colombia. Like, I think this is in the United States. And he says, right? Welcome to Ohio, everyone. I love that Drew Carey show. Arthur says, let me get this straight. Somali immigrants get billions in taxpayer dollars for free for fraudulent daycares. In exchange, they fund Democratic candidates with the free money. Democratic politicians like Waltz and Omar ensure fraudulent payments continue. How is that not instant jail? This is electoral fraud on top of Medicare fraud. How is this not the front page of every newspaper? Good question. Great question, guys. Yep. I wonder that too. With that, we've got to say goodbye. I've got more fraud stuff coming up, and we're going to talk about the invasion, and we're going to